days when everything is digitally and fast moving, SMEs play a key role in our economy, but also they are some most exposed to cyber risks. Our goal with CyberFort is to make cybersecurity easier, not scarier. And the most important, to help small businesses handle the new Cyber Resilience Act in a way that makes sense to them. CyberFort is a European-founded project, and it's about building real tools like our compliance management software and working directly with companies, authorities, and experts, including from critical sectors like maritime and energy. We are creating a space where compliance becomes part of everyday business, not a burden. I must add that with the support from the European Commission and powered by a dynamic international team, CyberFort, it's all about giving SMEs what they really need: practical guidance, smart digital tools, and partnership that deliver real results. We have experts from Romania and across the European Union, which are here today to walk us through some key ideas, practical examples, and show how the CyberFort platform works in practice. Thank you for joining. Stay curious, ask questions, and let's get started. By the way, I forgot to mention that we have received a lot of great questions from participants, which shows how interesting is and involve everyone is in the topic that we are covering today. From practical concerns like compliance and certification to broader issues like how rules work together, how SMEs can get support, and how can we cooperate internationally. It's clear that people don't just want to understand the CRA, they want to know how to actually put it into practice. If there are any additional questions, please let them in the chat, and we will try to address them all. If not today, then via email. Now, I would like, of course, when something have to go smoothly, something it's will broke this fluent situation. So instead of having our director, because he just received the invitation to to the government, and we cannot have it right now in the meeting. So if you allow me, Mr. Popescu, Pavel Popescu from ANCOM, we will start with you. And I'm so happy to welcome Pavel. He is the Vice President of ANCOM, Romania's national authority for managing and regulating the communication sector. Mr. Popescu can explain us how regulation are implemented across telecom, postal services, and the radio spectrum. But more than that, he's actively working to make regulation more accessible and SME friendly, all while keeping innovation and consumer protection in balance. As we may know, ANCOM plays a key role in keeping innovation and regulation balanced in this fast evolving sectors like telecom and IoT, IoT, and 5G, especially with frameworks like CRA and the Radio Equipment Directive coming into play. So how important is for ANCOM to stay in close contact with SME And what potential do you see for deeper collaboration with national authorities like DNSC so that CRA compliance becomes a shared effort and stays aligned with broader European Union goals? So, Mr. Popescu, if you can hear us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Mihaela, for the invitation to this project. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. Yeah, about ANCOM, a few things about the institution I represent. I would say it's a critical institution in the architecture of the Romanian state. And I'm not saying this as a cliche defending the institution I'm part of, but I'm saying this from a position where for almost 8 years, I have overseen the ANCOM from the ITNC committee in the Romanian Parliament. We are under the Romanian Parliament as a regulatory body under the control of the ITNC committee in the Romanian Parliament, but also as a vice president now, knowing or getting to know the institution from inside. If for 7 years I have approved budgets I've approved budgets for ANCOM, now for 1 year and a half already, 1 year and 8 months already. It was a pleasure to be part of this very interesting ecosystem and teams that we have in place. I will say without hesitation that I would say with all the humbleness, I pretty know most of the institutions in the Romanian state, ministries or authorities, agencies, and I would proudly say that ANCOM has an average of technical people, which is, I would say, above anything you can see in this country. I'm saying this very proudly. I'm not going to apply this to everything and to everybody, of course, but we are actually ready to go hands-on on any project which is related to telecommunications sector, DSA, because we, as you know, we got many hats in the last years. Cybersecurity, we are part of working with your DNSC for the cyber ecosystem. And it was a pleasure in the years in the parliament to set up the legislative framework for actually a good cooperation between institutions, because at the end of the day, nothing would be possible or nothing would be successful implemented without a deep cooperation between institutions. And speaking about regulation in place, because everybody knows that everything what we do today in terms of regulation and legislation comes actually from Brussels, and we're not going to hide from this statement that everything comes from Brussels. I'm not saying this in a as a statement that was it's very popular through the populist voices these days, but I have to say that everything coming from Brussels, it's coming with good things and bad things. It's coming with advantages, to say it more nicely, and disadvantages. And there are very often situations when we have to apply transfer legislation and apply legislation in our national framework, very careful, because we have particular situations where in different countries things are staying different. Regarding the legislation that we are discussing today, the CRA, I would say that our regulatory role will come secondary, as it came into the NIS2 directive, because of course DNSC is the National Cyber Directorate, is the the main institution which is in charge of the cybersecurity in this country, and it should always stay like that. And by the way, congratulations for the fact that in the last years your organization grew substantially, and it reached a level of matureness that we were expecting to see. And we as ANCOM, for example, on NIS2, we play a secondary role, being responsible on one of the topics in our telecom infrastructure, and being responsible of the cybersecurity in different infrastructures that we oversee as a regulatory body. It's going to be the same with CRA. So we look at, from a regulatory perspective, we look at CRA secondary after we will see DNSC's natural and primary approach over the CRA Act. So we are prepared, like we did on NIS2, to cooperate with you and support even from a legislative approach your institution. And of course, we come to implement this new legislation with an open mind. Because you mentioned the Radio Equipment Directive, RED, I have to tell you all that on top of the many hats that we put on our head in the last, I would say, 1 year, this RED directive is, I would say, crushing us in terms of what we have to do in cooperation with other institutions in Romania, for example, the border police, where we actually, for the first time, I was talking to our monitoring executive director. For the first time in the last years, we've exponentially increased the activity on the radio products, radio equipment on the EU market, because, as you know, the radio equipment directive is regulating the placement of this radio equipment on the EU market, and our activity with the border police and the teams there increased exponentially. We have constant teams in all the borders of Romania actually catching large quantities of radio equipment which should not enter into the European Union. And this is the biggest headache that we have. Well, of course, is our job to do, but this is priority number 1 on Radio Equipment Directive. The Cyber Resilience Act, compared with the Radio Equipment Directive, it's establishing a more comprehensive, I would say, cybersecurity framework for all the products with these digital elements, hardware and software, of course, to ensure this cyber resilience across their life cycle. And it is different by the directive I was just telling you that we exponentially increased our activity, but there are very interesting points where they overlap. So we treat, for example, in the expectation of having CRA in place, we treat a RED directive as being a training camp, a training field for us in order to see how we will become better in applying the Cyber Resilience Act when you will project it in the legislative framework. So I would say that we are lucky that training on RED today at a smaller scale on the radio equipment that enters on the EU market offers us the possibility have a taste of what's going to come on CRA. The cybersecurity focus on RED, for example, is as I said, on the radio equipment, and it's specifically network resilience, because as long as you have a device which is connecting to something else and it has Bluetooth or any radio communication, we have to see that it's complied with the regulation in place. And as I said, we will have in the next, I would say, 1 year and a half, or actually 2 years and a half, because the CRA is fully applicable from, if I remember good, December 2027.
December, yes.
Yeah,
right.
We will have kind of a training, because we are already stressed with the fact that cybersecurity requirements, part of the RED directive, will have to be mandatory. So in place from August 2025. So with advantages, and I said with disadvantages in the beginning, we are preparing for that. The thing about the EU legislation is that, and I have to quote, I know Elon Musk is one of the most loved and hated persons in the world, but one thing that he said, and I totally agree with him, is that European Union has the tendency of over-regulating. And actually, unfortunately, and I'm going to go now to the SMEs topic from our perspective. Unfortunately, we are in a position as the European citizens inside the European Union, where our market, instead of growing and giving us opportunities and possibilities to exponentially grow and be competitive, stopped being competitive and stopped growing. And while the European Union, we focused more on regulation. I'm not saying that it's wrong or totally wrong, because in the world we are living today, you need an adult in the room who should raise the topic of regulation, standards, and why not topics which are not so often discussed, for example, in Silicon Valley, which are ethics. So I would say that we have our role, but regarding the market and the growth and the competition that European Union and we as countries and as a country should have, I think things should change in a totally different way. It should turn to a totally different direction. And my hope is that in the years to come, we will see a possible mind shift into this direction. Because I'm not a fan of regulation. So over-regulating things, we have the tendency to regulate things that did not even appear. So, we did not have an explosion of AI a few years ago when the European Union AI Act was, so much debated. And I'm not saying that is not good. It was a great act, by the way, was made with the help of a great Romanian who puts efforts into that. But we have to keep in mind that the market and the SMEs, which are actually considered being the backbone of our economy, national economy, and shared European economies, should be at the focus of each regulation. I'm keeping and I'm underlining the idea of advantages and disadvantages. So as I said, we can see between CRA and RED, for example, if we could call them shared cybersecurity goals, like both regulations are aiming to enhance the cybersecurity of connected devices to protect the European consumers. From my perspective, when CRA will come in place, I think will totally overlap the cybersecurity requirements in the Red Directive, and it's going to take actually the whole cybersecurity, regulation in place today in the Red Directive, which is targeting only the radio components. I'm happy, and this was a very active debate starting from 2019 when the Huawei debate came in place into the European Union. I'm happy to see that CRA will treat the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem and cybersecurity ecosystem that are exponentially growing very seriously from a cybersecurity perspective, because the world we are living in and the connected devices which are part of our daily life will pose a direct threat for every human being on Earth, and I think we should treat very, very, very important, with a very high importance, this topic of cybersecurity. I think I just came out from a meeting where we are treating the spoofing problem we have in Romania, and we put the team in place in order for the next week to take some very serious measures on that and reduce the spoofing in Romania. And in our debates, we've always brought the cyber security problem, because it doesn't matter what you are doing into this new world that we are living in. Cyber security is not going to be only a simple word. It's going to be actually a very high important component from every human's being life. So,
and the shared responsibility, and the shared responsibility.
And a shared responsibility. That's why I believe whenever an authority of Romania, for example, is going to put legislation in place, it will impact and it will need rubber stamps, and not only rubber stamps, maybe a more advanced analysis for almost all institutions which are interacting with this ecosystem, digital ecosystem we are living in. Regarding SMEs, I brought the SMEs. I'm touching the SMEs topic from a very, again, open-minded perspective and encouraging perspective, in order to let SMEs to do what they know to do. Because one of my theories, and it's not a theory, it's what I believe actually, is that the private sector knows exponentially more than the government knows. The government, if you need a headache, you will bring the government to bring you more regulation on top of more European regulation. So I'm a big fan of involving the private sector, seriously involving and direct involving in the cooperation with the Romanian institutions and institutions across every country. It didn't happen, and it doesn't happen at the level it should actually happen. And every day through meetings, I will give you an example. Yesterday, I had a brand new cybersecurity director in a very big Romanian companies in my office. He just got a new position, and this was the first thing that I told him when he entered my office. Actually, you are here to ask us to cooperate and solve a problem, but you are here also to tell us technically how we should do that, because your expertise in terms of cyber attacks, it's much bigger than the expertise that any technical guys into this institution have. We are putting in place a new infrastructure for this domain. but I'm keeping my belief, and I strongly believe that real expertise, hands-on expertise, real solutions are coming for the people which are daily hands-on into the market, and that's the private sector. That's why I believe that every piece of legislation coming out from Brussels offices or from this country, or applied or implemented, it should take into consideration a serious discussion and a public debate and public consultation, serious public consultations with the private sector. Here at ANCOM, we do this. In the telecommunication market, we are very transparent. I'm proudly saying that whenever we take a decision, whenever we make a consultation, whenever it's a transaction, we're actually in the middle of one of the biggest transactions between some telco operators in Romania. We are doing this very transparent. We are bringing them into the discussion, but yet it's yet a lot to improve, and I encourage every institution to do that. The expertise that cybersecurity companies have should be instantly adopted by the government, and not speaking, I mean, I don't want to give an impression that the government cannot do everything. Definitely that it cannot do everything, and it cannot do so much that people are expecting, because we should do things for us. But definitely, I think also companies have to understand, and especially in the Romanian ecosystem, companies, the banks, other authorities have to understand the fact that whenever you have new legislation in place, and you have institutions like DNSC or ANCOM, which are open-minded, are ready to cooperate with them, are ready to open the arms for the private sector. The private sector at its end has to understand that they also have to jump in and share data with these institutions. We have serious problems with different operators from all various sectors, from postal services to telco, to gather the data that we need for certain pieces of regulations. I know pretty sure that DNSC has also, debates with different parts of the private sector in order to notify and share data faster, in order to mitigate the risks whenever we have a cyber attack or any kind of attack at our infrastructures. So I think this is crucial to understand on the other side, to be understood on the other side in the SMEs world. But I strongly keep my belief that expertise and growth comes from encouraging, less regulating, more encouraging, and more involvement from letting the government, letting the SMEs and the private sector to come more into the our institutions and give us solutions. I think a cooperation is crucial, and in the next, I would not even say 10 years, in the next 2 to 4 years maximum, by 2030, we will be shocked, and I'm using this word, shocked, about how this world will look with the development of the new AI technologies
and quantum, post-quantum, and quantum computing advancing.
Exactly.
Yes, it will be interesting to see the next period, and it will be sooner that we believe. I think less than 10 years regarding the quantum computing. We have to stop a little bit here because I would mention about our collaboration between our institutional collaboration. I'm sorry that Mr. Câmpean is not here, but as I remember last year at the 2024 Bucharest Cybersecurity Conference, he just highlighted the need to turn CRA into something practical for SMEs. And that's exactly the goal of our project CYBERFORT. All these requirements involve national authorities and to make and to be sure that the transition will be smoother, offering tools, trainings, and also ensuring strong collaboration across sectors and synergies between sectors. If you allow me, Mr. Popescu, thank you for your intervention. I would shift to the European level. The Romanian perspective was very interesting, and I will shift to the EU level. And let's see how European agencies supporting SMEs in navigating CRA from practical certification-based perspective. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Razvan Gavrilă, cybersecurity expert at ENISA, where he has been actively involved since 2011. He works on cyber crisis cooperation and contributes to ENISA's broader mission to strengthen Europe's cyber resilience, especially for SMEs. In these recent years, he focused on helping organizations keep up with new rules like the Cyber Resilience Act, but by working on practical strategies, certification models, and useful tools, support tools. ENISA has been actively involved in turning CRA into something concrete, from designing certification schemes to creating toolkits for SMEs. Mr. Gavrilă brings insight into how all of this is taking shape. So I would ask you, Mr. Gavrilă, a CRA obligation become applicable starting December 2027. What is ENISA's plan for designing certification scheme, and will support SMEs and services providers through this transition? Will there be tailored tools or simplified paths for those who don't have so much resources? Because sometimes this could be scary.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you for the introduction and for having me today. As you mentioned, I'm Razvan. I'm the head of sector for market technology and product security at ENISA, and we are responsible among other tasks with the implementation of the CRA. We are one of the key technical voices offering advice both to our colleagues from the European Commission, but also to the entities that will be responsible for market surveillance. And Mihaela, first of all, I would like to thank for the question, but I was reflecting on some of the points that were mentioned a few moments ago, and I think it might be worthwhile to first cover what the CRA is actually trying to achieve, because indeed it comes with a lot of challenges. Many of them are have been pointed out even during this session, but perhaps it's good that we look a little bit on what was the actual intent and why, at least in ENISA, we feel that the CRA is really a game changer. So first of all, I think what we need to clearly state is that the CRA is one of the key pieces of EU cybersecurity legislation, alongside the Cybersecurity Act, which is also the founding regulation for our agency, for the EU Cybersecurity Agency, the NIS2 directive that I imagine most of you are very much aware of, and also the Cyber Solidarity Act. So I was listening a few moments ago, and I think we need to really underline what makes the CRA special and why it's a little bit more than or why RED is not just a subset of the CRA, because it really marks a fundamental shift in how the EU approaches the security of the products that we use every day. So not only the products that are being made by SMEs, but also products that are being used by SMEs that they buy from the market. So a company that has a particular business will have a good level of assurance when it buys something, that they don't need to put a lot of effort into securing those products, that they come like that out of the box. And that's that's because for years the focus has often been on securing networks or on reacting to breaches or to security events, and the CRA really makes a fundamental change to how security should be embedded into the products themselves right from the beginning. And I can imagine that most of the people who join in for the webinar are familiar with some of the key concepts, but I would really like to state them again. So first of all, when we talk about the CRA, we make a clear statement that there's a shift of responsibility towards the left. And that's because the principles of security by design and security by default are now embedded in the actual legislation. What this means in practice is that manufacturers can no longer treat security as an afterthought or an optional add-on, or as we saw sometimes as almost as a business constraint, saying, you know, if you want the security feature, then you need to pay for it. All these manufacturers are now legally required to build security into their products, both hardware and software, from the earliest design stages. And they need to ensure that these products are configured securely when they come out of the box. Again, there's an element of complexity that we can imagine for those manufacturers, but also it simplifies the work and the load and the effort and the time spent by other SMEs or operators of essential services when they buy these products from the market. They no longer need to check whether these products are security designed. In principle, they can operate under some assumption that these products have been designed with security in mind. So this is really a proactive approach, which in principle aims to prevent vulnerabilities before this product even reach the market. And another element that I think was correctly mentioned a few moments ago is that the CRA really has a very, very broad scope. So unlike previous pieces of regulation that might target specific sectors like finance with DORA or critical infrastructure, the NIS directive in the past, the CRA really applies horizontally to nearly all products with digital elements sold in the EU. So there are very few categories of products that are not covered. You have medical devices, you have products that relate to transport, trains, cars, and so on. Obviously, products used for national security purposes, but in general, if it's a smart home device or toy, industrial control systems, as you heard, even technology being used for customs or standard software, the CRA applies to it. And because you use such a large market, this has potentially very significant global implications, because any company that would like to sell something on the EU market or to other players that operate or sell those products on the EU market will need to comply. So most likely we may see the CRA having a global impact, not only on products being sold in the EU. Then, and I think this is quite important and a really important game changer, is that there's an element of life cycle responsibility. So what the CRA does in practice is that it recognizes that cybersecurity isn't a one-off task at the point of sale. So you buy and basically that's it. Manufacturers are now responsible for the security of their products throughout a significant portion of their expected life cycle, or at least for 5 years. This is what the legislation is saying. So this includes providing security updates and patches, and also having processes in place to manage vulnerabilities for the products that are being sold. So in a way, this kind of ends the model of sell and forget. Now, the reason why this is key is obviously this implies some effort to some of these manufacturers, but on the other hand, there are many mission-critical systems that operate in essential services that are what are normally called legacy systems. So replacing them, it's very, very difficult. Also, they are no longer maintained by the manufacturer. It creates a lot of challenges, high costs often. So having this level of predictability will actually benefit the market. It will not only create a good understanding of, okay, for how much time can I rely that this product is going to be maintained by a producer, but also it will give you a good feeling that in case a big issue is found, the manufacturer will actually take steps to address that issue. So that's, I think, quite important. Then, speaking of that, there's an element of accountability when it comes to manufacturers, and perhaps this is the most significant shift in the sense that it's placing direct legal accountability squarely on the manufacturer, importer, or distributor. So they are responsible for ensuring that their products meet the CRA security requirements, and also that they perform conformity assessments. And maybe this is something that I need to touch upon, because how that conformity assessment or the routes that can be taken in order to show compliance can differ. One of those paths is using the EUCC, the EU certification schema that our agency is currently managing. We will be running a pilot this year, checking whether specific protection profiles can be used for this purpose in order to achieve assumption of conformity. So this is something that we are working on actively this year. And we will see to what degree this can also be used by SMEs. Also, going back to manufacturers, they need to report actively exploited vulnerabilities. Our agency is putting right now in place a single reporting platform that's going to be specifically used for this purpose. So they have a legal obligation that in case they find a weakness that is actively being exploited, they need to share that information with us, and we will make sure that this reaches the national competent authorities and also the market surveillance authorities when relevant. Then, and I think this is also something quite important that needs to be mentioned, is that the CRA or before the CRA, cybersecurity requirements for products could vary by quite a bit between EU member states, and this can be for various reasons. But in general, this lack of harmonization created a really complex patchwork for businesses. So it was very, very difficult to navigate what one needed to do in order to sell a product and to prove its trustworthiness from a cybersecurity standpoint. So what the CRA is currently doing is it aims at establishing one clear, harmonized set of essential cybersecurity requirements across the entire EU single market. And in principle, and again, I think this is a key point that I would like everyone to take from here, as this regulation is very business-driven and business-friendly. This type of approach will provide some legal certainty for businesses, and will also achieve the other legal aim, that is a consistent level of security for consumers and businesses. So with that being said, now when it comes to SMEs in a more particular way, this year at least our agency aims at working on what we call the CRA SME toolkit, so a very comprehensive guide that will make at least some of the elements that relate to how to apply the principles of the CRA a bit more friendly for those organizations or businesses that do not have the capacity or the know-how. It will also provide clear guidances to what they should expect in terms of how they should do their risk assessment, what type of product they have, in what category it falls. But in general, what we aim to achieve, and I think you mentioned that in the beginning of the webinar, Mihaela, we want to make the regulation less scary. We want to make sure that SMEs understand that the reason why these principles have been put forward from a legal perspective is to ensure that others can buy their products and have some level of assurance that someone has performed some security design or had some security principles in mind when those products were being created.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Razvan. We saw excellent collaboration between ENISA, ECCC, and DNSC at the last year Bucharest Cybersecurity Conference in Bucharest. So definitely there are synergies between our organization, and this can be turned into concrete action, especially to support. I would have one more question in mind. Are there any efforts to mutually recognize EU cybersecurity certification with other countries or regions to help manufacture, especially SMEs, access markets behind the EU?
Yeah. Also, maybe I need to mention that currently the biggest effort goes into standardizing many of the verticals and the horizontal principles of the CRA. So there's a very large request that came from the Commission. I think it's probably the largest in history from what I know, that was sent to the European standardization organizations, where we will have both harmonized standards that in principle, if they are followed, there should be an element I need to be very careful with the legal words that I'm choosing, because you cannot assume conformity, presumption of presumption of conformity with the CRA just by following those standards. But in principle, those standards will offer a lot of clarity on what someone needs to do in order to comply with the CRA. Obviously, our agency, because we have a responsibility in creating the certification schemas, we would like that those schemas are used widely, both at European level, but also by international partners. We are not directly responsible for having this mutual recognition taking place. So we are the ones responsible for getting the schemas ready. The Commission, as you know, is the one that approves the schema and basically makes it operational in practice. But in principle, we feel that the certification path could be one of the key facilitators or drivers of making sure that an entity, if they have one of those certificates, they are basically meeting the requirements of the CRA.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, to be classified as manufacturing.
We will answer at the end the questions.
Okay.
Now I will move faster to to Matteo Mole, Manager for Cybersecurity Technology and Innovation at ECSO. He has a very extensive experience in the IT industry, where he focused on software adoption with a varied number of public, private, and partner organizations. In current role at ECSO, he coordinates 2 technical ECSO working groups with a high impact on the European cybersecurity strategy. One defining the cybersecurity research and innovation roadmap for trusted and resilient technologies, and the working groups on trusted supply chain, focusing on standardization and certification in cybersecurity. I would mention that ECSO play an important role in connecting public authorities, private sectors, and the research community, and helping turn EU policies like the Cyber Resilience Act into practical strategies. Given the ECSO's role in coordinating cybersecurity efforts across Europe, Matteo, how do you see the Cyber Resilience Act reshaping collaboration between SMEs, industry leaders, and public authorities in the coming years, particularly in building shared capabilities such as certification, coordinated risk management, and vulnerability handling with an evolving industry framework?
$1 million question. But let me also maybe adapt my intervention. I will be mindful of time, but also adapt based on the previous interventions. And by the way, I look forward to the webinars where ENISA will explain also the let's say the connection between the UCC and the CRA. So a lot of good material out there. Let me start also saying this. I was speaking to a large manufacturer, and we, as ECSO, we have a lot of organizations that are public. We have an organization that work in research, but mainly also manufacture of cybersecurity and large cybersecurity users. I was speaking with one of them about the CRA, and he told me at the end of the day, what is good for SMEs is good for everyone. And to me, this is what basically summarizes what I'd like to say. It is that the Cyber Resilience Act is putting together a lot of stakeholders, is creating, if you want, depending on the perspective, problems or opportunities. In any case, is creating somehow an incentive to increase the cybersecurity posture of the European market. And this goes beyond the verticals, this goes beyond each sector. It's supposed to be a common problem for everyone. That's basically the definition of cyberspace. And if we add to that, if you look at IoT product, but in particular product with digital elements, as the CRA says, their supply chain is very complex. In many cases, each stakeholder, each vendor is part of each other's supply chain. If you look at upstream the supply chain, it means that then you can see other of your vendors will need to be in compliance with the CRA. And if you go up to the stream to the top, you can also find open source communities that develop open source library codes. So it's very complicated. We can have a number of point of views. That's what we're trying to do here at ECSO. For instance, if you take the vulnerability handling part, as you would say before me, many stakeholders will need to solve or understand, have this common understanding, common wording of what are the problems that need to be solved. And to give you an idea, because it was quoted, the standards that are being developed at the moment, horizontal and vertical, will be referenced not only by the manufacturers, but also by the bodies that perform third-party conformity, the market authorities. So everyone is trying to basically to get their head together and understand. On the risk management as well, obviously you can follow, there's so many framework out there you can follow, but there too, there's a lot of discussions going on what are the common minimum denominator that we can rely on. So the point of view that I like to take for the ecosystem problem is the conformity part, which is probably the one that is more the sexiest in a way also for the industry. And let me say this, if properly implemented, the Cyber Resilience Act will create a positive spillover effect. So basically, when as a manufacturer, I'll go choose my supplier, choose my vendor, I will try to create this sort of effect for CRA compliance. I will try to make sure that my component is already in line with CRA, because it will save me time, it will assure me, and in the end, I will have to do less work for my product. It's a sort of trickle-down effect of compliance that starts from the product that you put in the market and goes upstream all to your supply chain. And basically, each stakeholder will have to play his part, because I will go ask my vendor will go ask his vendor, and so on. So this is the idea of creating this positive effect, a push to have a sort of by CRA compliance effect. And now, this is not meant to scare, it's just to explain how in ECSO we're tackling this complexity. This is quite complex. It's a complex activity based mainly of the complexity of software world. In ECSO, I will give you this example, we are spending time on trying to understand how manufacturers can reuse evidence of compliance from the previous steps. And it's pretty an interesting and a complex problem, because you need to consider this. When you have a final product with digital elements on the market, it may integrate several components, and such components need to undergo different level of conformity assessment methods. As ENISA previously said briefly, there are different ways, depending also on the scope and your product and your risk assessment. There are different ways to provide compliance. You got the harmonized standards, you can have common specification of the certification schemes when they will be activated. You got third-party conformity assessment, and you got self-assessment, which is the most common. As a manufacturer, how can I trust, for instance, a vendor of mine who did a self-assessment? What can I go and ask him? Did you do it well? Can I be sure that that's secure? So what we're trying to avoid here and to want to minimize is the risk for manufacturer to either test too much or to check too much, maybe more than they need, because some evidence is already there. Or the opposite, we don't want, is that they rely too much on their vendors, and sometimes also they rely on weak, from cybersecurity perspective, weak components. So this is to give you the complexity, and this is to give you some of the activities we're trying to do in ECSO. And I can tell you, this is bringing together the ecosystem. There's a lot of search for alignment to avoid fragmentation, but also to foster harmonization, and in our case, reusage of evidence. I hope I didn't go too much into details, but I think the topic of the laws were covered already by the previous interventions.
Yes, but your perspective it's very important also, and that's why I wanted to have you in this webinar, and thank you for being here. And now that we have covered policy, strategy, regulation, let's move to some action. I will say we will hear from two key CYBERFORT partners who are turning CRA principle into real-world tools and use cases. I am pleased to welcome Alexander Oswald, Group IT Director at Columbia Shipmanagement, a global maritime leader operating over 450 vessels. His presence is especially important as CSM stands at the forefront of integrating digital compliance and cybersecurity in the maritime sector. With hands-on experience in aligning IT and OT systems, implementing real-time monitoring through their performance optimization control room, and leading cybersecurity initiatives at fleet scale, Alexander could bring important insights into how complex operation can adapt and evolving regulatory framework like the Cyber Resilience Act. Okay, so you have the floor, Alexander, and you can go ahead with your presentation because as we spoke, Alexander will have a presentation for today. Thank you. You can share the screen. You can
Thank you very much, Michaela.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for having me today. Allow me quickly to share my screen to give a little bit of thin red line or silver lining through the next 15, maximum 20 minutes. Again, as Michaela introduced me, my name is Alex Oswald. I'm head of IT or Group IT Director of the Columbia Group. What is the Columbia Group? The Columbia Group is, we consider ourselves a maritime logistics, energy and leisure service platform. Why is this relevant for today's discussion? We are the end user of the CRA and different compliance and regulations. We are on one side running ship operations, we are running logistics chains, we are running energy services in terms of platform management of oil rigs, supply ships for the offshore industry, etc. But we're also running cruise ships, etc. So we are all into maritime. We are handling currently around 500 different ships around the world, and we're building currently ourselves 20 different ships end to end, meaning from building the ship until we're scrapping it one day. Now you might wonder, and where does CIA come into place here? Throughout the last 15 years, while I'm in maritime, we have been seeing a strong trend of catching up with a very traditional and some might even say ancient industry in a fast-paced digitalization journey. We're coming from an industry where the boats are out of wood, moved into steel, where paper charts and paper was a long time the trend. And now the last, I would say, 10 years, we are improving tremendously on digital systems. Particular IT systems was the last trend. And now step by step, we're moving, as Michaela alluded to, into the world of OT. Performance managing ships, capturing emissions we are emitting into the air, becoming a green shipping industry, as you might see in the news, etc. Helping to have a digital service on board for our crew, for our passengers, etc. So we're moving in a digital era, and moving into a digital era and having this end-to-end service offering, we are very much running or swimming, in this case, target for any kind of cyber threats, being on the IT and OT side. And in order to build resilience for the maritime industry, we are a proud partner of CYBERFORT and other European Union initiatives around Resilient Europe, where we're trying to create innovation and adaptation of proven technologies into maritime. Be it innovation built like in a EU project like CYBERFORT, which I will come into more details to, but also adaptation of other industries' technologies, because we in shipping had the tendency in the past to believe we have all figured it out, but there are other industry, be it healthcare, be it aviation, be it automotive, etc., that have definitely different proven concepts around that. For today's presentation and what I want to describe a little bit from the SME side of things, I just want to distinguish two important factors. When I'm speaking today, there are two aspects. On one side, I'm an end customer that needs to also ensure he is CRA compliant from an end user point of view, or he has insight and transparency on CRA compliance. Whereby at the same time, within the group, under my supervision as IT director, we're also a big system integrator, and we're also developing our own maritime software and maritime OT equipment. Why is that relevant? There are different regulations already today in maritime for us, and I will show you a few of them on the very next slide. For example, there is the IMO regulation, there is IAX, E26, E27 of how we are building digital and cyber-secure ships in this regard. So we are always bound to different maritime regulations, which are scattered all around the globe. That's why we're happy that the European Union now embarked on directives like NIS2, CRA, or the old known GDPR. But to us as a ship manager, we also have to comply with several other international regulations. Unfortunately, to date, we have never found a platform that helps us to centrally and consistently manage compliance, not only CRA, which again we will deep dive in a moment, but also managing regulations imposed from the IMO, imposed from IAX, etc. So in this regard, I would like to also mention that CYBERFORT is important to us to ensure central, consistent compliance for our fleet, but also covering the whole ship life cycle. If we are building a ship, it's also important for us that we have exactly that transparency on the supply chain. What kind of OT equipment are we building into our fleet? What kind of system integration are we providing? Are we trusting self-assessments? Are we trusting different certifications of our providers, be they from Europe or be they somewhere else from within the world? So there's another important aspect that we need to cater for. I just see in the chat you cannot see my presentation. Michaela, maybe cross-check with you. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Several participants cannot see the presentation.
For me and for some of my colleagues, yes. As I
for
can
all the
see,
participants that cannot see the presentation, we can certainly share the presentation afterwards as well for a recap. There's no problem with sharing the presentation afterwards as well.
Some of them can see it.
Okay, thank you very much for the confirmation. Now you can see it.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Okay, so coming back to CYBERFORT and building a CRA compliance check platform, as I mentioned, for us, the important part is we need central compliance and visibility across the fleet for our ship management, but also across the ship lifecycle. The shipper is undergoing different equipment installation, different upgrades, and different level of digitalization. So for us, it's of paramount not only to have security operation that focus on the daily monitoring of our security of IT, we are moving into a connected world of OT. We are connecting cargo operating systems, we are connecting automation systems of the main engine for emission and consumption control, etc. And since shipping moves into this world of OT, which is very crucial and critical to the ship's infrastructure, we need to make sure that whatever component are utilized there and suddenly connected from an enclosed network to the open internet or in networks, we need to ensure that we have full transparency and awareness and cyber resilience on these aspects. Also, unfortunately, we're traditionally very driven by paper, by regulatory audits, etc. In order to help us to improve reduce manual burden and improve transparency in regards to audit risks, etc., we are very much building within CYBERFORT this platform that helps on CRA, but also cross-framework compliance investigations and compliance monitoring. And moreover, as I alluded to already, we had since years security operations and real-time monitoring of IT equipment within our fleet, within our shore, within our clouds, etc. But what we always have been missing is the real-time augmentation of the GRC, the governance risk and compliance aspect. So what we're looking forward to right now within the CYBERFORT projects and other European Union projects coming forward, how can we augment the real-time policy enforcement and traceability of what's happening within on our ships, what happens in the OT ecosystem on board our ships, what happens in our offices, including the respective applicable and mandated respective compliance frameworks to us. And also, in this regard, the compliance will not stop with CRA, as the gentleman from ENISA alluded to. CRA might even go global, or if not, there will be another CRA within the APAC region. There will be another CRA within the US region, etc. So we need to build concepts, holistic security operation concepts and GRA concepts that allow us to scale globally under evolving mandates and always considering, particularly for us in shipping, in an evolving digital agenda. And last but not least, for us, as I mentioned, as a system integrator of building ships, for us important that we are ensuring a supply chain conformance and compliance ability, so we can make sure that our suppliers selling us a cargo monitoring system, selling us a radar system, selling us any radio equipment for our ships, etc., we can check compliance and conformity with CRA in this regard, and also give the same transparency and assurances on running a cyber secure ship up the value chain to our clients, in order to ensure that they can rely on a secure ship that has the capability to transport cargo, to transport oil, etc., in a secure and reliable manner. Moving forward, I also want to allude a little bit in, okay, what is the early insight for SMEs and the GRC adoption? How do actually SMEs like ours and many of our shipping companies around the globe, how do we actually get into the insight on CRA and other regulations? It's know the risks, know your business model, and understand why your operational bottlenecks in today's IT and OT monitoring. Because many believe that there's a new regulation, I can comply in its entirety, but nobody understands what does this respective framework actually apply to, and how does it apply to the respective business model. So it's very crucial from the beginning to sit down, risk assess the business model with the respective applicable framework. Understand operational bottlenecks, whether security compliance can be applied, whether auditing compliance can be applied, and understand also the future auditing points with an early assessment. And then find the GRC tool that fits the business. There's no other way around it. You need to be able to digitalize the compliance requirements for your business model and your organization, and then tie this into your security operations on a continuous basis. Now, what is it? Is it visibility or is it perfection? We in our world are prioritizing visibility over perfection. We know we will always have pitfalls. We may not have every regulation 100% covered in this regard, but we need to know who owns the respective risks, what controls are in place, what is the continuous strategy and improvement process in this regard. So this is why in our world, prioritization of the visibility of what are the applicable rule kits and what are we basically having in place as identified risks and controls is a very much mandate for our operations. Focusing on cross-framework readiness, we are applicable to CRA. Many of our companies within the group are applicable to NIS2. GDPR applies to all our European entities, but all our fleet operations are applicable to IMO MSC, for example, or the new ships that we're building right now are applicable to IAX E2627. Meaning, for us, it's not only CRA, we need to combine across different frameworks legal compliance for our different business model and entities. Meaning, we want to build towards automation. Yes, we automated security operations for IT. Now we need to move into the OT world. So in this regard, it's important for us to perform evidence tracking of what is the evidence of the respective conformance. How do we track version control in terms of alteration of ships designs, of new update of equipment, also update of regulatory frameworks, etc. And how do we ensure role accountability? We are a very diverse organization. There are gentlemen who are technically in charge of a ship. There are gentlemen who are cybersecurity related charge in terms of ship, etc. And for us, it's also important that within our GRC efforts, we are making sure every role understands its importance within the supply chain. We cannot allow a technical manager of a ship to simply purchase a new radar without ensuring that this is in conformance with CRA going forward, whether this is in conformance with internal controls, whether this is in conformance with IAX E26, E27 standards, for example. So this is a very important aspect for us as well. It's the awareness of every element within our organization and his responsibility towards the upstream or the respective downstream element within the supply chain. Having said that, you might say, okay, thank you very much, Alex, but where do we actually start? We understand there's IT compliance is rather the easier aspects from the past, etc. But where do we start with the OT part? Let's start with the fundamentals of OT. OT in our world, it's uptime critical. A ship's main engine and a ship's radar and a ship's voyage data recorder, like the airplane's black box, cannot stop operating. Many of the systems are today vendor locked, but many of the systems are also very much safety focused in order to keep the ship safe, the crew safe on board, and the respective operations in a safe and sound state. Frameworks like the CRA are helping us now to finally lock up or unlock the vendor lock. We finally have a mean to go back to our supply chain and ask for conformity. We can finally build and understand transparently what is the conformance of a certain radar, as I mentioned, any other OT equipment that we're putting on board. This will very much affect and help us to be more compliant with IAX E26, E27 and different maritime regulations from the IMO. On the OT side, as we all know, here we are more flexible, yet it's more fragmented in terms of different IT setups. It's a fast changing environment, changing operating system, changing different software component, etc. Here, certainly the subject of ESCRA and the subject of NIS are very important to help us again to monitor conformance and help us to automatically also scan IT equipment with an active scanning, also conforming then with the regulations in the CYBERFORT CRA platform, meaning combining the continuous scanning of vulnerabilities within our IT equipment, the IT ecosystem, together with the GRC compliance rules applicable within the CYBERFORT GRC tool. On the OT side, we all know, particularly in the ships environment that we are acting, we cannot actively scan OT system in this regard. This is a little bit a critical sector where we need to be careful. We need to apply different scanning methodologies that we are applying with the consortium right now on passive scanning and being cautious not to interrupt the OT system operations. Nevertheless, what we're also doing within the CYBERFORT project, we are creating models where we will be in a position to simulate OT scanning and OT conformance in a ship's simulation going forward. Now, where do we start in this process overall? This process overall for us starts with an adequate and accurate inventory of IT and OT assessment. What's the right models and maker? What's the integration between them? How do we bridge the IT and the OT world? What are the controls in place? What is the respective manufacturer, patching levels, and the respective responsibility in our organization going forward? Creating risk awareness, understanding what risks are applicable to a ship in terms of IT and OT equipment. Again, who is the owner of the respective equipment? What's the accountability to the risk assessment process, to the respective patching and mitigation process? And how do we document that going forward within the CYBERFORT toolkit in order to ensure that any future external audit assessment can be shown the complete life cycle from onboarding equipment, assessing its conformance from the beginning and its continuous life cycle across our ship's life cycle. And then afterwards, unify control matrix across domains. We need to create controls that allow us to monitor the CRA part, they monitor the NIS2 part, any GDPR compliance, etc. So as you can see on the right side, that GRC tool going forward is mapping the compliance to the respective products. That's paramount for us. It enables us going forward for indirect supply chain risk management from the perspective of an end user. So we know what's the equipment we put on board, what's the respective policies we basically have to comply with or the manufacturer has to comply with, and we have a full transparency on conformance. We also planning to move forward with automated evidence collection, meaning scanning of the respective equipment, storing the evidence, etc., and then taking from there on respective action plans of possibly finding patch mechanisms with the supplier and pushing them for the respective conformance. And as I mentioned, enable cross-audit readiness for internal and external audits in order to ensure that we are conformant with external frameworks and legislation, but also what we impose on ourselves. And that's another layer that we need to consider. We're also imposing on ourselves additional cybersecurity regulations and controls internally in order to be a little bit ahead of the curve and not only following what is mandated from other frameworks by the European Union, by IMO and other member states that is going forward. I hope with this outline, I could give a little bit of an outline of how we are approaching cybersecurity within the maritime industry, be it on the fleet management side, in the IT, but also on the OT side. Maybe I would like to close with the important part, particularly in the CYBERFORT project. We believe we will be able to build together with the consortium partner a toolkit that will help SMEs, certainly also the manufacturing side, etc., create a platform that helps not only to tick boxes, but to actively assess products, software solutions, etc., and helps SMEs like us to ensure that we have transparency of what happens in our supply chain, what we system integrate into our ships from our supply chain, and give assurances on the way forward to our clients, to assurances and other regulatory bodies going forward. And with this, I saw many questions, I believe, coming in the chat. I will hand over to you, Michaela, again, trying to stay within time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexander. For me, I hope this your presentation highlighted how digital transformation, compliance, and maritime cybersecurity can and must work hand in hand. So now I will. Sorry for that. It was a fall down. Okay, now I will rapidly pass to Nikos, and I will welcome him. He is the Research and Development Manager at Clone Systems, where he leads the technical development of the CYBERFORT platform, a solution designed specifically to help SMEs and being CRA compliant. His experience in translating regulation requirements into practical tools through user-driven approach is key to ensuring the platform's effectiveness in a real-world impact. So, hello, Nikos. Thank you so much being here, and I will give the floor to you.
Hi, Michaela. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk here today. I believe you can see my screen, so I can continue. So yeah, I'm Nikos Ikatos. I'm an R&D manager at Clone, and we at Clone we have experience for almost 30 years with cybersecurity, offering SOC services, vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, and other cybersecurity activities. We are contributing as an active member in the technical development, but for building this cybersecurity compliance platform with a focus on CRA. But we can definitely say that this is not a work that we're doing by ourselves. We have a very strong consortium and with a lot of different expertise. And so we have technical people, legal, and very interesting industrial applications. Let me start with the high level. Also, I know that I don't have a lot of time, so I'll try to go quickly. Let me start with a high level overview. So what we're trying to do is this centralized GRC solution, where the organizations could handle governance, risk, compliance all in one place. We are designing the platform to meet CRA requirements, but also we make the alignment with ISO 27001. So this will be suitable for compliance in Europe and beyond. But what is more important here is that we want to make the platform modular and extensible, so that if we want to, if for the future also to be able to add and support additional frameworks, so like NIS2, GDPR, and stuff like that. We have a multi-tenant design so that different organizations and different SMEs, they can have an isolated environment and role-based access, so it will be more practical for them. The presentation should be visible, I hope. Michaela, you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I can see it. I hope everyone can see it. Okay.
Okay. So whoever has sent the message, I don't know, I'm sorry for that. Sometimes it might be the problem with connection, so I have experienced that. Okay.
For some,
or internet bandwidth sometimes.
Okay.
But okay, thanks. I will continue then. So what I was saying is that we target SMEs, and that is why we look for a simple and flexible solution, and we consider that we try to look for teams that they don't have. Okay, I'm receiving so many messages now. Let me try to turn it off. I'm sorry. Okay. So we optimize it for SMEs, and that's why we try to add features and functionalities that the companies that would be useful for the companies that don't have very large cybersecurity teams. And finally, we have some very nice pilot use cases, and we are ready to use the platform across these different industries in real world conditions. So in this part, in this slide, I wanted to briefly present the high level architecture. So it is simple. It is this modern three-tier design. So front end, back end, and database. The flow is simple. So the user interacts with the UI. Then the front end sends a request to the backend API. The API then routes the request to the tool wrapper, and the wrapper triggers the tool. So this tool might be a scan or something like that. Once the scan is finished and the results are collected, then they go back to the API, and then they are also displayed to the UI. So it's kind of like the very standard approach. What we're doing is that we are using React and TypeScript in front end. So we start for a strongly typed languages so that we have some sort of security. We continue with Python and FastAPI in the backend, and Postgres is enough for the database. So regarding the tools and the scanning tools, so the idea is that the user can directly add whatever inputs each tool requires, so that they can. Yes, Christian. Yes, please. You can feel free to ask.
Nikos, we will address the question at the end of.
Okay.
So we won't
No
have
worries.
questions here.
Okay. Also, it's a little bit short on time. Okay, perfect. So there are 4 tools. I will also refer to them a little bit later on. But the idea is that we have this wrapper so that we abstract all tool-specific complexities, and we can standardize the input-output handling. We do everything with containers, with Docker, so that we can use it across different platforms, and orchestration is done with Docker Compose. What I want to say here is that we can do it both on premises and locally. So we keep in mind that some of the companies, they might not want to have internet access. So we are offering this option as well, so that people can download it and run everything even without internet. Let me move forward a little bit. So the core functionalities, like I said, we have a unified platform to simplify compliance, and we integrate security, policy, risk management in one place. We start with product and asset registration. So we offer the opportunity to the user and to the SME and to the stakeholder to register all the hardware and software products that they have. These assets are then mapped to the CRA Annex 3 and 4. And then we can further use this information in the next step. So based on the criticality, on whether the SME is a manufacturer or not. The next part is about the policy creation. So internal policies, risk management have to be first created by the user and by the SMEs, and then they can also, as a next step, can be mapped to CRA articles and ISO clauses. We offer the opportunity, and we have a feature about to assist with audits and with automatic PDF documentation. There is the framework creation that okay, we need to load, let's say, to all the laws and all the articles, and we also need to link them with the objectives. And once we have actually done the registration, the creation, we can start with the assessments. We have the risk assessment, which is which you know it's we need to have a live risk inventory. It's important. And it helps very much the organization to identify, prioritize, and respond to risks in almost real time. Conformity assessment and audit assessments are kind of like the same things, but from a different viewpoint. So users can perform self-assessments about against CRA. And then the idea is that you map the objectives with yes or no with respect to with what the SME is doing. While the audit assessment is kind of like the same thing, but you view it from the point of view of questions. So you have the questions, and then you, as the user, can reply to it and also generate evidence. There are three more features. One is about the vulnerability scanning and the security tool integration. So what is important is that we need to check for software dependent. Sorry, we need to check for security, for network, for web, also for static code analysis, and for dependencies. All these vulnerability scanning tools are useful, and they directly connect to the Annex 1. So with this, integrating these vulnerability scanning tools can help with all the SMEs checking their software and their products. like I said before, there's the multi-tenancy and the role-based access. So we offer the opportunity to multiple organizations to enter our platform. So that it will be easier for them. It will be fully isolated. They will have their own kind of like fine-grained control. And finally, we will have a compliance dashboard where all the risks, metrics, analysis, results will be displayed. This is work in progress. So I will present very quickly the screens and some of the concrete parts that we have been working on. But yeah, so this is almost finalized, but of course there are more features and more things that need to be integrated. So the first part is about the product registration. So this screen is about where the users can register all their digital elements. So here we can refer about the critical classification, what is the status, if it is live, it is old, if it is expired, what is the economic role, which is important. So if the user is a manufacturer, importer, or reseller, and the product type. So whether we refer to hardware and software. One key field is also criticality, because as you know, and as we will see, so they are based on the class and the criticality and the importance of the products, different kind of like set rules apply. And so once the product is registered, then the system automatically starts also linking with risks based on the specific type. Second thing that is needed is to add to perform the policy registration. So the organizations need to document and manage cybersecurity policies. So, and on the left, what we can see there is that the users can register a new policy. They can add the title, description, and mapping to specific framework. So it can be CRA, ISO, or more. And then these entries can be saved and then can be linked with a risk assessment later on. On the right side, I have added a specific example. So we have the ID, we have the title, for example, it's policy management policy, who owns the specific policy internally, and whether it is, and what is the status, whether it has been approved or not. In addition, it is important to do the connection with the framework. So if this policy applies to CRA, ISO, NIS, or more. And so as new frameworks are added, the policies can remain valid and they can be automatically linked to the relevant CRA objectives. Next, I can talk about about the risk assessment. So we have in this screen, we perform both risk registration and assessment. So the risks are categorized again based on software and hardware. We have a centralized repository of all the risks. We can use a lot of different kind of like variants that exist, but it is partly a self-assessment as well. So each risk can have a category, it can have a description, an example, and then the likelihood, severity, and the status can be self-assessed. So someone can for example, the corresponding person in each company can be responsible for doing that to the best of their knowledge. But we help by providing also a set of predefined mitigation controls, so that the user can also choose which one of them is applicable. Okay, of course, this also are useful information, so they are also mapped to the other parts, and also they are added in the dashboard. So I will go. So we have done the registration. We started with the risk assessment, and now we have the self-evaluation and the self-assessment. So this part is straightforward. We have the requirements from the law, the CRA article, the ISO clauses, the objectives, and we go and we perform we do the mapping, and we answer whether this is compliant or not, whether this is something that exists inside the enterprise. What is the audit assessment is similar to the conformity assessment, but there is a different perspective, is that here we have questions. So this is something we have already implemented also in our platform. And the idea is that, okay, we will have the question from the objective. We have also into which article, to which objective it applies, and the user can answer these questions with yes, no, or partially. So this is very helpful for auditing, and this is what is in its main purpose, and that's why we also, I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but we have a button which is about adding evidence. So there we can upload supporting evidence and policies and reports and logs. So it can be useful both for internal and external audits, internal reviews and external audits. What I mentioned before is that we need also an important part is about the integrated scanning tools that we are adding to handle the vulnerability aspect. So far, we have identified 4 tools. All of them are open source. All of them align with both part 1 and part 2 of the annex. So network scanning, web vulnerability detection, SAD code analysis, and dependency vulnerability checking. And they actually cover most, if not all, the requirements. And there are also some rule registrations, some policies that they have to be added, and the self-assessment as well. This is something that we are also working on, so there might be a chance that we might add another tool if we identify that there's a need to that. Very quickly, I have a few more slides. The platform needs to have to offer the opportunity to add new frameworks dynamically, so nothing is hard coded. So we can also have a list of questions or Excel files which have already the information from the law, so we can also dynamically add that. And we can add additional questions or edit the questions, of course. And finally, like I said before, this is multi-tenant. We have an admin panel for user and organization management. There is role-based access, and there are three main roles that we are envisioning and we are implementing so far. So the super admin, the organization admin, and the organization user. So super admin has full access across all tenants. Organization, it's like the name suggests, it manages the user assessments and the compliance of its organization. Yeah. Main dashboard. This is to get the information, all the information. It's a typical dashboard with metrics. So, for example, here you can see that there is the health score. And this means that, okay, there's a bad situation, so we need to have a remediation action quickly. The risk overviews, high, low, medium, whatever, based also on the risk assessment before. We can have the compliance achieved so far based on the different frameworks that we are working, and also we could have also recent activities or the results of the vulnerability assessment tools. So this is something that we are also working on, and we think it's good to have in the future, how we will make some mapping or some explanation from the vulnerability scanning tools to a little bit more human understood language. I know that there are a lot of people from the project, so I want to have a slide also to show that there are 4 cases, 4 pilot use cases. This is work in progress. We are having all of them that they are manufacturers across different domains, EPG with hardware and OT. We are looking at class 1 and class 2 requirements and Modbus, firewall, and RTI. Delio. They are a financial company, they are a manufacturer, and they have an IT solution. So it is non-critical for now, but is also important to check. Clone systems, we will be checking on RCM and our next-gen CM based on the CRA. This falls in IT and also important class 1. And finally, like Alex said before, there is Columbia, who are manufacturers, and they are also on the border IT, OT, and we are looking at products at important class 2. Summary. So what we have done, what we have shown, it's a work in progress, but this is our vision. This is what we have already developed, and a big part of what I showed is already fully functional. So we have we are building a CYBERFORT platform, which is as generic as possible, as modular as possible, and it will be a GRC solution. Currently, we are complying with CRA and ISO 27000. We have the risk management, we have the compliance management, the vulnerability scanning tools, evidence, governance, documentation, and the dashboards. The next steps, they involve the integration of the pilots and the refinements based on the further inputs, to the evaluation of whether there are further tools that they might need to be integrated. And finally, we have also promised as part of the project to perform penetration testing to guarantee that our platform is reliable and secure, and finally to perform training to the users and to the stakeholders. I'm sorry for passing over time. I'm sorry for that. But
I'm sorry,
I tried. At least I tried somehow.
The discussion was too informative, and we couldn't let our guests to be restrained at 10 minutes or so. In the meantime, I want to thank you to Mr. Câmpan, our director, that he joined us, and I'm very thankful. If it wasn't possible to join at the beginning, we still appreciate you joining us later, and I would be happy to have some thoughts from your side if it's possible. Mr. Câmpan, can you hear us? Okay. So in the meantime, he couldn't. Okay. So thank you so much for your presentation and for your information you gave us. It was really informative for me, and I hope for you that join us today. I will take 2 questions if it's possible, and then I think for the other question, it was already they were already answered during the conversation. So let's see which, as I can see here, Alex already gave an answer. I will have one if Pavel Popescu is still with us. I saw a question from Nick. Could you please share one or 2 concrete examples of public-private partnership that ANCOM is currently involved in, particularly in areas of digital infrastructure or cybersecurity? So it would be nice to have an answer for that. Nikos, you can close your sharing screen. And thank you, Pavel, for remaining with us.
No problem. So private-public partnerships, in the definition of private-public partnerships projects, we do not have. Unfortunately, we have the PPP legislation in Romania, which is not matured enough, or it doesn't have all the puzzle pieces in place to be applied, unfortunately, because it should happen as soon as possible. But we have, as a regulatory body, as an authority, we have to be impartial with our, of course, telco operators, vendors, etc. But yeah, I can say that we have different projects implemented with other institutions of the Romanian state, plus private companies, and of course we have cybersecurity solutions that we get from top companies around the world. I mean, through acquisitions and through tenders. We have contracts with most of the famous companies in cybersecurity around the world, which participate in a tender. One of the, let's say, impressive projects that we can show off these days is the partnership that we have with SpaceX in changing the 25 years old legislation, almost 30 years old legislation across the globe. There's a legislation which consists in technical details regarding interference between the NGSO satellites, the low orbit satellites, and the GSO satellites. We can proudly say that we are the first country in the world who accepted SpaceX to do their first test in the world on Romanian soil, finished it, gathered a very positive data about this technology. And ANCOM 3 weeks ago was almost 1 month was mandated by the former Prime Minister to support the technology itself. And from here, it came out a nice partnership and friendship with one of the best companies in the world, the best company in the world in terms of telecommunication on NGSO technology. Of course, our position supports all the NGSO companies, the new technology across the world, from companies like Amazon, Eutelsat in Europe, of course, also the European satellite ecosystem. But I don't think there's an authority in the world. I mean, not I don't think, I know there's no authority or like us, agency, like authority in the world, regulator in the world in this moment, which is so advanced on a topic which is actually going to shape the way people are communicating and translating that. Practically what we are doing is allowing the Starlink satellites to function at powers of 8 times more than they usually function, which translates in internet through satellite, which can reach up speeds to over 1 gigabyte, while today you have around 300 mega on a Starlink device. And of course, I underline again, as a regulator, this is a very impartial position. We support the technology itself, and we chose, of course, SpaceX to do this project with. This is an example, and it involves also cybersecurity, interesting topics inside the whole project. Plus, as I said, unfortunately, there are projects that we cannot make public, but I can assure you that we have some very, very interesting projects coming, and some of them you will hear in the near future. That's why I'm very proud that our institution, I think, really put Romania on the map across the world regarding this topic.
Yes, thank you, Pavel. We have an intervention from Andrea Fulger about this, but maybe you can read it, and I will address rapidly another question from Paul Lăcătuș from Razvan, and he asked, how can the EU ensure that cybersecurity regulatory frameworks such as ENISA 2, ENISA and the Cyber Resilience Act remain agile and adaptive to rapid technologically changes, threat evolution, and AI-driven risk without compromising legal certainty and enforcement consistency across member states? So if we can answer to this rapidly, and then we wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. It's obviously a very easy question to answer in a couple of minutes, considering the time constraints that we have. I'm not an inspirational speaker, but since we are getting very close to the end, I want to make something very clear, and this relates also to some other questions that I've seen, for example, on the nature of e-banking, whether they fall under the CRA or not, and so on. I think we need to make a distinction between what we call doing things right and doing the right thing. So a lot of the legislation that doesn't necessarily come from Brussels. It's really a product of cooperation between governments, the European bureaucracy, the European Parliament, the industry. There are many voices that normally come into play when all these rules are put in place. So it's not some brain or some bureaucrat that just puts something in a dossier and pushes that through and asks everyone to comply. And I really want to underline this, and I'm saying this from a position of someone who's been working for the EU institutions for a very, very long time. Common sense often prevails. So it's not only about doing things right, following some rules or making sure that you're just compliant. It's also really putting the focus on what is it that we are trying to achieve. When it comes to the CRA, or when it comes to for example, the AG that has also been mentioned, the intention needs to be understood. And when the intention is well understood, I think many things become more simple, and we avoid, and this is something that at least our agency is really focusing on, that we don't end up with more paper security. The CRA should not lead to paper security. This is not what we want to do. We really want to make sure that everyone who's part of this ecosystem, and I really like the presentation that Matteo made. He touched upon some very important elements in terms of complexity, but it showcases that some people are really putting brain power behind this, and this is what the legislator aimed at doing, and this is what we want to help others doing, explaining some of that complexity, how it can be tackled, what are the constraints, and what's reasonable as well, depending on the level of risk and the type of product that you're going to put on the market. So I know that there's tendency of looking at the union as being this body that constantly over-regulates, but having guardrails in place has often proven, in the long run at least, that it helped the union have, for example, when it comes to agricultural products, better products. When it comes to the sockets that we have in our house, you can plug something in and you're not afraid that you're going to die being electrocuted. So there are many benefits by having this type of rules in place, and now we just need to find the right balance that comes obviously from experience, as long as we keep our focus on the fact that we are all trying to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Razvan, and thank you actually all for staying so long. And but I think we gather some information, and this could raise some other questions and some the topic for some other webinars. The feedback and the questions we receive show that the interest is real, and so we need to be coordinated and to have a practical action, not only talking or so. I hope in the near future we can see some changes, and I hope we will all be committed to have this journey together and this continuing engagement. Okay, thank you so much. If you will need some other question, do not hesitate to contact us on LinkedIn, and we are open and transparent for any other information. So we will wrap up here. Thank you so much for being, and we keep up close together. Thank you.